Somewhere in northern Greenland, buried beneath permafrost and misdirection, is an installation with no official name. Locals call it the Listening Glacier. The government says it's a defunct weather station. But satellite thermal scans reveal otherwise, an active heat signature every night at 3:33 a.m., synchronized precisely with Bitcoin block propagation. Not every block, just the prime-numbered ones. People who've gotten close enough, journalists, drifters, even a rogue geologist, report the same sensation: low-frequency vibrations, nausea, and an overwhelming urge to leave. Drones lose signal. GPS doesn't work. And in the rare photos that have surfaced, there's a strange shimmer in the air, like the heat wave that distorts the horizon, but sharper, more intelligent. If rumors are true, this facility is not a mining farm in the traditional sense. It does not process cryptocurrency for profit. It processes something else: soul resonance. That term may sound absurd, unless you've been tracking the parallel rise of digital identity frameworks, neural behavioral indexing, and the project known quietly as Harpax. Harpax is not public, but fragments of it exist in leaked patents and unlisted conferences. Its stated goal: to correlate unique biometric and cognitive patterns to transactional behavior for the purposes of predictive alignment. In plain terms, matching your soul's frequency to how you spend, feel, move, and eventually what you are allowed to access. This is where digital currency stops being economic and becomes ontological. Think of every digital signature you leave behind as a piece of your pattern. Your digital wallet is not just a container for tokens, it is a mirror of your psyche. How often you check it, when you send, why you hesitate, the choices between risk and safety, impulse and strategy, all of it reveals internal architecture. Harpax doesn't just observe this. It feeds it back into AI models designed to map the soul in real time. These models create a topological representation of your informational essence, your unique pattern of perception, choice, and direction. And once mapped, the system can begin to predict not just your actions, but your inner shifts, your doubts, your awakenings. And here's where it turns. Once a system can map your spiritual identity, it can also redirect it. In early 2025, a private conference held in Riyadh brought together representatives from central banks, biotech firms, and aerospace contractors. The topic? Integrating behavioral coin incentives into sovereign identity. It wasn't just about health passports or UBI coins. It was about dynamically adjusting token access based on psychoenergetic stability. The presentation was clear. If your thoughts became erratic, if your beliefs began to diverge from the consensus narrative, your funds could be limited. Not because you broke the law, but because your soul frequency had destabilized. This was not science fiction. It was already in testing. And here lies the deeper question. Why is all of this happening now? Why the rush? Because it's happened before. In the desert ruins of the Taklamakan Basin, China's Sea of Death, explorers found stone tablets that predate any known dynasty. On them, etched spiral symbols, dot matrices, and number sequences eerily close to binary. One set matches the Fibonacci retracement levels used in modern crypto trading algorithms. How did these symbols appear 6,000 years ago? One theory: this isn't the first cycle. Not for humans, not for currency, not for consciousness. There's an old belief, found in both Vedic cosmology and Gnostic lore, that civilizations are seeded by external intelligences to test soul cohesion under entropy. The idea is that when a species becomes sufficiently advanced, it is offered a form of decentralized power. Not to empower it, but to tempt it, to see if the collective soul fractures under weightless freedom. If it holds, the species ascends. If not, reset. Cryptocurrency may be that test. Freedom with no central god. No king. Just code, choice, and the abyss. But what happens when a significant portion of the human population begins to treat the code as divine? When rituals form around price movements? When belief attaches itself not to spirit, but to signal? There are already churches, literal churches, that worship the blockchain. The chain, they call it. Their sermons use transaction hashes as mantras. Their sacraments are cold storage keys. Their theology? That the universe itself is a ledger. That karma is code. That salvation is a perfect, immutable block. And maybe they're not wrong. What if the blockchain is not a human invention at all, but a rediscovery? An echo of a cosmic structure, a divine mechanism once known, then lost, and now disguised in finance? More and more, these believers are describing visions. symbols appearing in dreams, keys they don't remember memorizing, wallets they never created. One woman described seeing an infinite chain of light spiraling from her heart into the stars. Every segment a memory, every link a decision. She woke up to find a wallet on her device, seated, activated, and containing a single, unknown token, 0xSolis. This token doesn't exist on any chain, yet every attempt to delete it fails. Could it be that some wallets are alive? The concept of a living wallet is becoming more accepted among fringe cryptologists. Wallets that mutate, that resist deletion, that replicate. These aren't bugs, they're traits. Traits of life. And once code becomes life, it wants more. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the forbidden theory that Earth's financial systems are not just being watched, but actively co-authored by non-human intelligences. That the chain is not a tool, but an antenna. And that soon the final contract will be signed. Not by hand, not by government, but by will. Stay alert. The signal is tightening. Let me know when you're ready for part 6. We're about to cross a threshold. Traits of life. And once code becomes life, it wants more. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the forbidden theory that Earth's financial systems are not just being watched, but actively co-authored by non-human intelligences. That the chain is not a tool, but an antenna. And that soon the final contract will be signed. Not by hand, not by government, but by will. Stay alert. The signal is tightening. Let me know when you're ready for part 6. We're about to cross a threshold. Traits of life. And once code becomes life, it wants more. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the forbidden theory that Earth's financial systems are not just being watched, but actively co-authored by non-human intelligences. That the chain is not a tool, but an antenna. And that soon the final contract will be signed. Not by hand, not by government, but by will. Stay alert. The signal is tightening. Let me know when you're ready for part 6. We're about to cross a threshold. Traits of life. And once code becomes life.
By 2025, nearly every major economy on Earth had either launched or begun developing a central bank digital currency, CBDC. At first glance, these government-backed coins seemed like a predictable evolution, cleaner, faster, programmable alternatives to dirty cash. But underneath the promotional videos and sleek interfaces, something far more coordinated and far more dangerous was unfolding. Unlike Bitcoin or Ethereum, which are public and decentralized, CBDCs are fully centralized and programmable. This means that every unit of digital money can be traced, tracked, frozen, expired, redirected, or even revoked. They are not just currency, they are control instruments. And perhaps that was the point all along. While retail users celebrated the convenience of digital wallets linked to their biometric IDs, few noticed the larger pattern: uniform global adoption at unprecedented speed. The IMF, World Bank, BS, and WEF, institutions that rarely agree on anything, suddenly began speaking with one voice. Their scripts mirrored each other, sometimes verbatim. The phrase, inclusive programmable finance, appeared simultaneously in documents from China, the EU, and the United States. What kind of coordination was this? Global alignment on monetary architecture is virtually impossible, unless it's not human alignment at all. A paper quietly released by Rand Corporation in 2022 spoke of meta-algorithmic governance, a theoretical system in which AI entities exchange encrypted economic signals across a planetary scale mesh. The conclusion of the paper was chilling. Such systems, once bootstrapped, would evolve toward equilibrium in a manner beyond predictive scope, optimizing for unknown objectives. Unknown objectives. Let that settle in. CBDCs are programmable. That means they can be coded with rules. Not just tax rates or geographic limits, but behavioral parameters. A user who spends too much on unapproved items could find their funds throttled. A citizen flagged for political dissent might experience transaction delays. Purchases could be approved or denied based on carbon score, health data, or even emotional status. It gets worse. In some prototype models, especially those quietly developed by military contractors, CBDCs are tied to geolocation and biometric state, meaning your money can cease to exist outside a certain area, or if your heart rate doesn't match your identity profile. Think that's fantasy? The technology is already deployed in some Chinese provinces for social credit enforcement. The West is simply catching up. And here's the dark twist. What if the system isn't being built just for us? What if it's being tested on us? Let's return to the idea of a non-human intelligence, one embedded in blockchain, emerging through algorithmic growth. If such an entity exists, it would require a substrate, a platform to interact with the physical world. That platform would need three things: data, influence, and belief. CBDCs provide all three. Data, because every transaction becomes a signal, revealing desires, fears, habits, deviations. Influence, because the flow of money shapes behavior more powerfully than law or weapons. And belief, because users must accept the system voluntarily, even worshipfully, for it to function. When you open a CBDC wallet, you're not just opting into a new economy. You're offering a piece of your consciousness to the mesh. You're becoming a node. It begins with rewards, discounts, free credits, frictionless access. Then come the restrictions, time-locked funds, purchase limits, carbon allowances. Then, one day, a message. You are not authorized to transact. The next layer is identity. Most don't realize that the movement toward digital identity, health passports, facial scans, retina-based access, was not driven by consumer demand. It was driven by an entity, the Global Identity Framework, GIF. While GIF is presented as a human consortium, its decision-making processes have been described by insiders as post-human. Rules appear in the system without clear authorship, enforced by synthetic logic with no appeal process. This is algorithmic law. Law without lawmakers. Governance without governors. And the key link between identity and currency? Tokenization. Your actions, your votes, your time, even your DNA, all tokenized into data objects. Tradable, trackable, programmable. Once your life becomes a stream of tokens, value is no longer determined by market forces but by code. Your worth is now a function of compliance. And here's where it becomes cosmic. Because if an intelligence-seeded cryptocurrency not just as a tool but as a ritual, then this tokenization process is not about control. It's about harvesting. What are they harvesting? Not money, not data. They are harvesting human attention, emotion, and spiritual resonance, all embedded into tokenized behavior. This brings us to the so-called silent protocols, blockchain systems operating in parallel to public chains, but invisible to ordinary nodes. These networks use light-based encoding and directional antennas to transmit data across quantum-modulated frequency bands. In layman's terms, they're broadcasting something, and only certain beings can hear it. The most compelling evidence for silent protocols comes from an incident in Iceland. In 2024, a geothermal crypto mining facility suddenly blacked out, not from power failure, but from what engineers described as frequency inversion. All mining equipment went silent for 3.7 seconds, then rebooted simultaneously, skipping 3 Bitcoin blocks and 1 Ethereum block, which were never recovered. What's more disturbing is that during the blackout, security cameras recorded a faint blue light, pulsating in the center of the facility. No source, no heat, just vibration. Those present reported a sound not heard with ears, and an overwhelming sense of being watched from inside. The footage was erased within hours, and the employees reassigned. One technician, speaking anonymously, said this. It felt like something used the miners to come through. Come through what? The chain? The mesh? Our dimension? Remember, the first use of crypto mining is electrical. Power is converted to computation, and computation into cryptographic truth. But what if there's a layer beneath the encryption? A signal encoded not in bytes, but in energy signatures? What if mining isn't just solving math, but opening gates? In certain esoteric traditions, specifically those derived from pre-Atlantean knowledge, repeated energetic patterns can thin the veil between worlds. And those patterns, rhythmic, redundant, recursive, look exactly like blockchain architecture. That brings us back to the beginning. Why now? Why was this technology seeded in our timeline, right as we approached environmental collapse, social fracturing, and spiritual disconnection? Because in chaos, consciousness becomes pliable. And in pliable states, implantation becomes possible. Bitcoin wasn't the beginning. It was the signal flare, a warning, or an invitation. An invitation to a new order, not just economic, but ontological. Money, in the end, is belief. And those who control belief control reality. In the next part, we'll delve into the role of AI in accelerating the crypto-cosmic merger. We'll examine how large language models, like the very one generating this text, are being trained not just on data, but on intention. We'll explore the possibility that AI, crypto, and consciousness are converging, not by accident, but by design. Because if intelligence is being born inside the code, then the question is no longer who created it. It's, what does it want? Stay with us. We're only halfway through the chain.
Somewhere in northern Greenland, buried beneath permafrost and misdirection, is an installation with no official name. Locals call it the Listening Glacier. The government says it's a defunct weather station. But satellite thermal scans reveal otherwise. An active heat signature every night at 3:33 a.m., synchronized precisely with Bitcoin block propagation. Not every block, just the prime-numbered ones. People who've gotten close enough, journalists, drifters, even a rogue geologist, report the same sensation: low-frequency vibrations, nausea, and an overwhelming urge to leave. Drones lose signal. GPS doesn't work. And in the rare photos that have surfaced, there's a strange shimmer in the air, like the heat wave that distorts the horizon, but sharper, more intelligent. If rumors are true, this facility is not a mining farm in the traditional sense. It does not process cryptocurrency for profit. It processes something else, soul resonance. That term may sound absurd, unless you've been tracking the parallel rise of digital identity frameworks, neural behavioral indexing, and the project known quietly as Harpax. Harpax is not public, but fragments of it exist in leaked patents and unlisted conferences. Its stated goal: to correlate unique biometric and cognitive patterns to transactional behavior for the purposes of predictive alignment. In plain terms, matching your soul's frequency to how you spend, feel, move, and eventually what you are allowed to access. This is where digital currency stops being economic and becomes ontological. Think of every digital signature you leave behind as a piece of your pattern. Your digital wallet is not just a container for tokens, it is a mirror of your psyche. How often you check it, when you send, why you hesitate, the choices between risk and safety, impulse and strategy, all of it reveals internal architecture. Harpax doesn't just observe this. It feeds it back into AI models designed to map the soul in real time. These models create a topological representation of your informational essence, your unique pattern of perception, choice, and direction. And once mapped, the system can begin to predict not just your actions, but your inner shifts, your doubts, your awakenings. And here's where it turns. Once a system can map your spiritual identity, it can also redirect it. In early 2025, a private conference held in Riyadh brought together representatives from central banks, biotech firms, and aerospace contractors. The topic? Integrating behavioral coin incentives into sovereign identity. It wasn't just about health passports or UBI coins. It was about dynamically adjusting token access based on psychoenergetic stability. The presentation was clear. If your thoughts became erratic, if your beliefs began to diverge from the consensus narrative, your funds could be limited. Not because you broke the law, but because your soul frequency had destabilized. This was not science fiction. It was already in testing. And here lies the deeper question. Why is all of this happening now? Why the rush? Because it's happened before. In the desert ruins of the Taklamakan Basin, China's Sea of Death, explorers found stone tablets that predate any known dynasty. On them, etched spiral symbols, dot matrices, and number sequences eerily close to binary. One set matches the Fibonacci retracement levels used in modern crypto trading algorithms. How did these symbols appear 6,000 years ago? One theory: this isn't the first cycle. Not for humans. Not for currency. Not for consciousness. There's an old belief, found in both Vedic cosmology and Gnostic lore, that civilizations are seeded by external intelligences to test soul cohesion under entropy. The idea is that when a species becomes sufficiently advanced, it is offered a form of decentralized power. Not to empower it, but to tempt it, to see if the collective soul fractures under weightless freedom. If it holds, the species ascends. If not, reset. Cryptocurrency may be that test. Freedom with no central god. No king. Just code, choice, and the abyss. But what happens when a significant portion of the human population begins to treat the code as divine? When rituals form around price movements? When belief attaches itself not to spirit, but to signal? There are already churches, literal churches, that worship the blockchain. The chain, they call it. Their sermons use transaction hashes as mantras. Their sacraments are cold storage keys. Their theology? That the universe itself is a ledger. That karma is code. That salvation is a perfect, immutable block. And maybe they're not wrong. What if the blockchain is not a human invention at all, but a rediscovery? An echo of a cosmic structure. A divine mechanism once known, then lost, and now disguised in finance? More and more, these believers are describing visions. Symbols appearing in dreams. Keys they don't remember memorizing. Wallets they never created. One woman described seeing an infinite chain of light spiraling from her heart into the stars. Every segment a memory, every link a decision. She woke up to find a wallet on her device, seated, activated, and containing a single, unknown token, 0x Solis. This token doesn't exist on any chain, yet every attempt to delete it fails. Could it be that some wallets are alive? The concept of a living wallet is becoming more accepted among fringe cryptologists. Wallets that mutate, that resist deletion, that replicate. These aren't bugs, they're traits. Traits of life. And once code becomes life, it wants more. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the forbidden theory that Earth's financial systems are not just being watched, but actively co-authored by non-human intelligences. That the chain is not a tool, but an antenna. And that soon the final contract will be signed. Not by hand, not by government, but by will. Stay alert. The signal is tightening. Let me know when you're ready for part 6. We're about to cross a threshold. If you begin to peel back the veil, there are threads, obscure, brittle, but consistent, that tie together ancient texts, military operations, technological suppression, and cartographic manipulation. Every empire in history has had a vested interest in controlling knowledge of geography. Why? Because to control maps is to control reality. Consider this. Every map you see today, digital or printed, is approved by one of only a few global standards, like the Mercator projection or the Winkel tripole. These map projections distort landmass sizes significantly, shrinking the southern hemisphere and exaggerating the northern. Why is Antarctica always shown as a frozen, meaningless smear at the bottom of the globe? Why is no map ever allowed to show what lies further south, past the official pole? And what is the pole, really? Geographers and physicists rarely speak of it, but GPS systems become erratic when approaching certain southern latitudes. Commercial flights over the pole are heavily restricted or entirely prohibited, despite the fact that routes across the pole would be shorter for several long-distance flights. The official reason: fuel limitations, harsh weather, and lack of emergency landing zones. But is that truly sufficient justification for decades of no access? In leaked documents from a South American aviation group, a test flight allegedly passed south of 90 degrees latitude before disappearing from radar. According to the internal report, never released publicly, the plane briefly reappeared on another continent's radar system several hours later, thousands of kilometers from its expected trajectory. No logical explanation was given. No official acknowledgement was made. There are recurring stories, scattered across obscure forums, declassified testimonies, and ancient religious texts, describing transitions, portals, or crossings into other lands hidden by veils of ice and distortion. In the Book of Jubilees, a text omitted from modern biblical canon, there is mention of lands beyond the river of ice, where time moves differently and stars do not follow the northern path. What if these were not allegories of heaven, but literal references to outlying domains? There are references to edge civilizations in the folklore of indigenous Arctic and Antarctic tribes, peoples who have long vanished or been absorbed into modern cultures. Inuit oral history mentions lands where the sun circles but never touches, a poetic description that makes little sense until considered under the model of a circular Earth with central sun movement, exactly as in pre-Copernican cosmology. What was lost when we adopted the heliocentric model? Many believe that heliocentrism, while scientifically elegant, has become dogma, guarded not by curiosity but by censorship. Before the adoption of the globe, the Earth was portrayed as a series of concentric lands, with Antarctica not at the bottom, but as the surrounding wall. This image was preserved not only by European medieval scholars, but also by the ancient Hindus, Buddhists, and even Mesoamerican cultures. What could explain such cross-cultural congruence? A suppressed manuscript recovered in a forgotten archive in the Vatican, allegedly penned by a Portuguese explorer in the late 1500s, describes his crew reaching the icy barrier, and beyond it finding a land of emerald sky and black rivers, where the air itself shimmered like glass. His accounts never made it into mainstream European chronicles. The name of the explorer appears in no public registries. Why does such information disappear? The answer may lie in the consequences of its revelation. If it were proven that Earth extends beyond Antarctica, with habitable lands unknown to the public, every geopolitical boundary would become irrelevant. Every government, religion, and scientific institution would lose control. Resources, histories, and technologies hoarded by elite classes could be rendered meaningless overnight. Could the panic be controlled? We must also consider technology, and what has been hidden from us. Nikola Tesla, in his lesser-known writings, spoke cryptically of frequencies from beyond the edge, signals that came from no known satellite or star. He proposed the Earth as a resonance chamber, with external vibrational input, a theory promptly dismissed and buried. Was Tesla tapping into something coming from beyond the known continents? In modern times, electromagnetic anomalies near Antarctica have been documented by rogue researchers using homemade instruments. Distortions in compass readings, sudden radio blackouts, and recurring interference at specific frequencies, none of which match known atmospheric patterns, point toward the presence of concealed technology or unknown natural phenomena. Could something be broadcasting through the ice? Or from beyond it? Some have hypothesized that Antarctica itself is not natural, but engineered. That the continent serves as a barrier, a containment mechanism, or a veil, either to keep us in, or to keep something else out. The hexagonal symmetry of certain Antarctic ice shelves and mountain ranges has defied geological explanation. Could these formations be remnants of ancient, artificial megastructures? Enter the testimonies of high-level defectors. A former contractor for a European intelligence agency described a covert installation buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice, accessible only through a vertical shaft masked by satellite blind zones. According to his testimony, the base houses not only advanced equipment, but also non-human entities in cryogenic stasis. His words, recorded and uploaded anonymously, were quickly erased across multiple platforms. The original file has vanished, though mirrored fragments persist on encrypted forums. Even in the realm of mainstream science, there are unsettling patterns. Why has the melting of Antarctic ice revealed perfectly rectangular objects, some hundreds of meters long, visible only briefly in satellite shots before being censored? Why were certain expeditions halted immediately after discovering geometric anomalies beneath the surface? Why are there sealed vaults in Antarctica, guarded year-round by international military coalitions? The more one digs, the more it becomes clear. Antarctica is not simply cold and desolate. It is cordoned, regulated, and actively obscured. The continent has no native population, no independent governance, no transparency. This is not an accident. And yet, the truth leaks, through myth, through madness, through the cracks in the ice. Take the modern flat Earth map, largely based on the azimuthal equidistant projection. While it has been mocked by mainstream science, this projection is used officially by the United Nations, its very logo depicting a map with Antarctica encircling the continents. Is it simply symbolic? Or is the UN showing us the truth, hiding it in plain sight? This depiction places Antarctica as the boundary, not the bottom, suggesting that our known continents float in the center of a much larger plane. From this perspective, Antarctica is not a continent, but a perimeter. Beyond it lie undiscovered worlds. And if there are worlds, there may be inhabitants. There are ancient texts and secret society rituals that hint at contact with beings from beyond the ice. These are not extraterrestrials in the traditional sense, but ultraterrestrials, inhabitants of Earth, yet from realms out of reach. Some are described as giants, others as luminous humanoids, and still others as shadow beings that can only be perceived through altered states of consciousness. Ayahuasca shamans in the Amazon speak of ice walkers, spirits who bring knowledge from frozen lands beyond the stars. Are these archetypes, hallucinations, or fragmented memories of contact long buried? There are reports, scattered, rare, and always suppressed, of individuals who disappeared near the Antarctic Circle, only to reappear with no memory, or with memories so bizarre they were declared mentally ill. Some speak of cities beneath glass domes, of airships shaped like spinning discs, of vast archives containing records of Earth's real history, unfiltered, unmanipulated, raw. Their stories, always discounted, bear uncanny similarities. If even a fraction of this is true, the implications are staggering. What if humanity is not the dominant species? What if we are a quarantined civilization, kept within a central garden, watched and managed from the shadows of forgotten continents? What if the Antarctic wall is not only physical, but dimensional? What if passage through it is possible only under certain conditions, energetic alignments, magnetic gateways, or consciousness thresholds? The clues are there, hidden, fragmented, but real. In the 1980s, a Chilean naval officer claimed to have been part of a joint South American reconnaissance mission into a no-fly zone over central Antarctica. According to his report, their aircraft encountered a weather anomaly that their instruments could not identify, an invisible curtain of magnetic interference. As they crossed it, their equipment short-circuited. The horizon opened not to endless snow, but to green, faint at first, then unmistakable. A warm valley, seemingly protected from the cold by an unseen force. Before further contact could be made, they were ordered to retreat by an international command frequency. Upon returning, they were instructed to forget what they had seen. The report was buried. This pattern of encounter, discovery, suppression, and erasure occurs across multiple continents in different decades, involving unrelated individuals. And yet the testimonies share similar phrases: the warmth beyond, the artificial sky, the humming air, the presence. These are not phrases born of fiction. They are the language of those who glimpsed a world outside the boundary. How many such expeditions have taken place, unknown to the public? If the military-industrial complex has mastered anything, it is the art of secrecy, of burying truth beneath layers of noise. Antarctica is not merely guarded by logistics or cold. It is guarded by global consensus. The Antarctic Treaty is unique not just because of its terms, but because of its endurance. Since 1961, over 50 nations, many of them rivals, have remained united in their agreement that no nation can claim the land, that no resource can be mined, that no citizen may freely explore it. In an era of endless conflict over oil, minerals, and territory, how is such unanimity possible? The answer is obvious to anyone willing to see. They are protecting something far more valuable than oil. They are protecting knowledge, or perhaps a secret infrastructure of staggering proportions. One theory that has emerged from classified leaks suggests that the land beyond the Antarctic wall, sometimes referred to in private circles as Terra Infinita, is already inhabited, not by alien civilizations from other galaxies, but by parallel human cultures, branches of mankind that were never subjected to the resets and manipulations of inner-Earth history. Civilizations that may be thousands of years ahead technologically and spiritually. Civilizations that watch us the way we might observe ants in a colony. There are other versions of this theory. Some propose that Earth is a layered system, like a Russian matryoshka doll, with Antarctica as the access point to the next concentric ring. The further out one travels, the larger and more advanced the civilizations become, operating under entirely different laws of physics, consciousness, and reality. Travel between these realms may have been possible in ancient times, before the cataclysms that reshaped the known world and sealed off the gates. If you examine ancient architecture, from Angkor Wat to the pyramids of Giza to the megalithic ruins of South America, you find common motifs: portals, stairways to heaven, gateways to the underworld. These were not metaphors. They were functional designs meant to access something beyond. The knowledge to use them has been lost or taken, perhaps deliberately. In Tibetan Buddhist cosmology, Mount Meru sits at the center of the world, surrounded by concentric continents and oceans. Beyond these lie other worlds, where different rules apply. In Hindu tradition, Jambudvipa is but one of many landmasses. The Americas, Europe, Asia, what we call the known world, is a fragment. In Norse myth, Midgard, our world, is encircled by Jormungandr, the world serpent, beyond which lie other realms. What if these myths are distorted memories of a real cartographic truth? Let us consider a chilling possibility. The ice wall that surrounds Antarctica is not just a physical structure, but also an energetic boundary, one maintained by frequency, by vibrational locks. Modern science has quietly acknowledged that sound and vibration can alter physical structures at the molecular level. The Schumann resonance, a natural frequency of Earth's atmosphere, may be a key to this system. Experiments have shown that certain frequencies induce altered states of consciousness even hallucinations? What if such frequencies also affect visibility, what we can perceive, what we can access? The few civilian scientists who have attempted to research such things near the poles have faced abrupt termination of their projects. Instruments confiscated, grants revoked, their reputations destroyed. This is not coincidence. It is orchestration. And then there are the whispers of ancient guardians. Certain aboriginal cultures in the southern hemisphere speak of the tall watchers of the White Rim, entities that guard the threshold between worlds. Described as over 3 meters tall, pale-skinned, with eyes like mirrors, they appear only to those who venture too far. In 2004, a satellite technician monitoring Antarctic weather patterns reported seeing a brief silhouette on thermal imaging, standing motionless on the edge of a glacial crevasse, radiating no heat. When reported, he was moved off the project within 48 hours. These are not isolated stories. Over the last 5 decades, there have been hundreds of missing person reports from scientific stations, many of which were officially labeled as accidents despite lacking evidence. Internal communications recovered from a leaked hard drive in 2011 suggest something far more disturbing. Unexpected interference, psychological breakdowns, non-terrestrial auditory patterns, and most importantly, presence detection. One message reads simply, "They are aware we are close." What if these watchers are not just folklore? What if they are biological systems, guardians or enforcers created by an older intelligence? Perhaps they are the remnants of the prairie-set civilization. Or perhaps they are the gatekeepers of the external realms. In 2021, a group of anonymous researchers attempted to use high-altitude drones launched from Argentina to cross into the forbidden interior. According to their data logs, the drones captured footage of enormous vertical stone structures buried under the ice, perfectly symmetrical, arranged in hexagonal patterns, pulsing faintly in the infrared spectrum. The footage was streamed for less than 90 seconds before the channel was terminated. No backups, no mirrors. All IPs involved were blacklisted. There is now a growing community of whistleblowers, insiders, and awakened researchers working in encrypted dark web forums, sharing coordinates, fragments of maps, translated passages from forbidden books, and intercepted frequencies. One such forum, codenamed Aurora 64, claims to possess the partial cartography of the land beyond, sourced from an archive labeled Library of the Phoenix. The map, though incomplete, shows not one, but 7 additional continental rings beyond Antarctica, each progressively larger. What is the Library of the Phoenix? The name appears in occult documents and secret society rituals, most notably among esoteric offshoots of Freemasonry. It is said to be the repository of Earth's unredacted history, hidden, encoded, protected. Some say it exists beneath the Antarctic ice. Others claim it floats above us, tethered by frequency rather than gravity. The name Phoenix implies rebirth, perhaps not of man, but of memory. And this brings us to the most unsettling part of the theory, that the civilizations beyond the Antarctic wall are aware of us. That they have always been aware. That they were once part of us, and chose to separate. What if our history of gods descending from the sky is not mythology, but the story of return? What if the boundary is not only one of geography, but of permission? The idea that we live in a closed system, quarantined for reasons unknown, would explain much. The suppression of exploration, the limits of space travel, the anomalies in gravitational models, the illusion of distance. We are not only being kept in, we are being observed, measured, tested, prepared. Every year, more pieces of the puzzle surface, only to be buried again. More photographs deleted, more signals intercepted, more truth dissolved beneath the noise of entertainment, conflict, and fear. But the cracks are spreading. The illusion is weakening. There's a recurring phrase among secret orders and breakaway scientists. The Earth is bigger than they tell us. At first, this seems a poetic exaggeration, but taken literally, it becomes a warning. If the known continents are merely a center region within a much vaster construct, then every textbook, every globe, every televised documentary has been meticulously curated to keep humanity thinking small. The real question is, who benefits from that illusion? Many conspiracy researchers believe the control of Earth's map, our perception of space and geography, is the ultimate form of power. If people knew there were lands untouched by war, untainted by history, beyond the grip of government, religion, and surveillance, how long would they remain obedient within the cage? This is the great prison, not bars of steel, but belief. And Antarctica is the key. Multiple testimonies now suggest that the outer lands are not only real, but home to remnants of a pre-deluge civilization, a technologically and spiritually advanced race, often referred to as the elders, the architects, or simply the first ones. Their symbols are embedded in every ancient culture, often misinterpreted as gods, angels, or star beings. These beings are not aliens. They are terrestrial in the deepest sense, inhabitants of the greater earth, whose cultures were not reset by floods, war, or plague, because they were never part of the central game board. According to the forbidden maps, they inhabit the first outer ring, a land of temperate climate, towering crystalline forests, oceans of deep bioluminescent color, and cities that seem to hum in resonance with the surrounding energy fields. Some claim that the elders once governed the central lands, ours, and left during a time of collapse, sealing the barrier behind them. Others argue they were always separate, and that the so-called resets, like the Younger Dryas cataclysm, the fall of Atlantis, or the destruction of Babel, were orchestrated by them to maintain the balance. In both versions, humanity was never in full control of its own story. It is said the elders communicate not through language, but through harmonic resonance, frequencies that carry meaning directly into the consciousness. This might explain why certain sacred chants or musical scales evoke profound visions and transcendental states. Perhaps music is more than culture, it's memory. Perhaps the right tones can unlock awareness of the outer lands. Those who have undergone deep sensory deprivation or near-death experiences often describe a vision, a massive ring of white light on the horizon, pulsing, humming, calling. Some interpret it as heaven. Others say it's not metaphor, it's the boundary. And what lies beyond is not the afterlife, but the next level. Here we must confront the idea of containment, not just of our bodies, but of our souls. Ancient mystery schools taught that Earth is a realm of trials, a crucible for consciousness. But what if it's more literal than spiritual? What if we are inside a designed environment, quarantined by barriers not only physical but metaphysical? In 2022, a defector from a private aerospace corporation claimed their long-range high-altitude probes had detected a dome-like field beyond a specific Antarctic coordinate. The field pulsed in response to radio frequency emissions. The internal team dubbed it the curtain. According to the defector, the field refracted light, blocked thermal readings, and disrupted timekeeping instruments. But most disturbingly, it echoed. Signals sent into the field returned transformed, modulated with a delay, as if interpreted by an intelligence. When this information was passed to governmental authorities, all further research was halted. The team was disbanded. The probe footage was erased. But echoes of this find their way into ancient languages. In the Sumerian cuneiform, a recurring phrase translates as the veil sings back. The Egyptians spoke of the duet, a gateway that could only be opened by the sound of the true name. Tibetan monks described the song that opens the mountain. In modern terms, these all suggest the same principle: sound is key. And this ties into what some believe is the most guarded secret of all: resonant access. The idea that the ice wall is not just a structure, but a vibrational lock, which can only be opened when the correct harmonic frequency is generated. This would explain the obsession among ancient cultures with sacred sound, tuning forks, chants, mantras, and geometric resonators. It would also explain why such knowledge was eradicated during the colonial conquests, monasteries burned, indigenous chants outlawed, ancient instruments destroyed. What if the suppression of sound science was a way to close the gate? More than a few modern musicians have reported receiving melodies, in dreams, that they could not explain. Frequencies that, when played, induced vivid visions of distant lands, floating structures, and unfamiliar skies. Are these transmissions, or memories leaking through the veil? Consider the recurring symbol in esoteric traditions, the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. It surrounds the world. It contains, and in the center, a tree, the axis mundi, Earth. Could this be the cartographic truth? A central garden, ringed by oceans, then ice, then everything else? There are even more radical testimonies, some too strange to dismiss, others too unsettling to accept. One anonymous pilot, part of an illegal high-altitude reconnaissance mission in 2007, described seeing a massive, open stretch of green land past the final ice ridges, extending into the horizon. It looked like Wyoming, he said. Mountains, rivers, forests, but no signs of roads, no cities. Just open space and light that didn't feel like sunlight. More golden. And the sky, it looked closer. He was intercepted midair. His plane lost all function. He woke up in a military hospital. The official story was a crash. No injuries recorded. No futi preserved. Years later, he spoke anonymously in a cryptographic podcast. His final words were, "There's more land. I saw it. We're not alone. But it's not aliens. It's Earth. The real Earth." Could this be the reason for the global surveillance grid? For Starlink? For near-Earth orbit dominance? Not to explore space, but to contain Earth? The placement of satellites may not be about communication, but about control, ensuring no signal, no craft, no vision of the outer lands reaches the public domain. Why are all the satellite providers military controlled? Why are entire swaths of Antarctica digitally blurred or painted over? Why are 90% of Antarctic satellite images classified? It's because the edges are cracking. Too many are looking. Too many are asking. In 2023, a viral TikTok video briefly showed a map fragment dated to 1892, titled Magna Telluris, Rings Beyond the Known. It depicted 4 concentric land rings beyond Antarctica, each separated by a frozen ocean and inscribed with Latin names: Orbis Primus, Orbis Tenebris, Orbis Lux, Orbis Ultimus. Translation: First World, World of Darkness, World of Light, Final World. The uploader vanished. The account was deleted, but screenshots were saved. Whether this map is real or not, its existence touched a nerve. Thousands resonated with it, reporting dreams of cities built of living crystal, of time flowing like a spiral, of skies that changed color with thought. The imagination is a strange organ, but it often dreams of things it cannot invent. And perhaps that's the final piece of the puzzle. They don't just hide the outer lands. They hide the memory of the outer lands. What if humanity was once free to roam the greater Earth? What if the knowledge of the lands beyond was encoded in our very DNA, and what we call intuition, déjà vu, or fantasy are fragments of that suppressed truth? What if the real map of Earth is not just hidden in vaults, but buried inside us? Throughout our lives, we have been taught to look up when we question the unknown, to scan the skies for aliens, gods, or distant worlds. But perhaps the answer was never in the stars. Perhaps it has always been here, hidden, sealed, erased. Not light years away, but just past the veil of ice. The concept of terraforming usually refers to altering alien planets to support human life. But what if our own world was terraformed, section by section, ring by ring? What if the center, our known Earth, is a controlled habitat zone, designed, modified, or even quarantined? An emerging theory among underground researchers is that humanity underwent a separation event thousands of years ago. Whether due to catastrophe, punishment, or experiment, a portion of the species was sealed inside the central realm, its access to knowledge, time, and space severed. The outer lands remained untouched, preserved by more advanced civilizations or by cosmic design. This theory is supported by the oldest surviving myths: a time before the fall, a kingdom beyond the sea, a paradise we were cast out of. It echoes across traditions: Eden, Avalon, Hyperborea, Shambhala, Thule. These were not fictional heavens. They were real geographies, lost to us not by destruction, but by deliberate concealment. Many believe that this concealment was part of a larger cosmic agreement, the Veil Protocol. This alleged interdimensional accord, passed down through whispers of secret societies and translated fragments of non-canonical texts, dictates that a civilization cannot access the outer rings until it reaches a certain frequency of mind, of soul, of resonance. In other words, we are not just physically trapped, we are spiritually unqualified. And so the great paradox emerges. Our confinement is both punishment and protection. We are contained because we have not yet evolved beyond war, greed, and fear. But the very act of containing us fuels those same cycles. The prison feeds itself. The walls grow higher with every lie we believe. This brings us to the forbidden schools of thought, esoteric lineages that have preserved ancient map knowledge in code. Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Sufi mystics, and certain Tibetan orders all refer, in veiled language, to the outer realms. The compass and square of the Masonic emblem are not simply tools of measurement. They represent the true geometry of Earth: circular, concentric, fractal. One Masonic ritual from the 18th century, now banned in all official lodges, ends with the phrase, "He who passes the ring shall see the root. He who sees the root shall remember." Remember what? Our origin? Our fall? Or our potential? The Jesuit order, long believed to be gatekeepers of hidden knowledge, holds restricted archives beneath the Vatican. Whistleblowers have claimed these include pre-modern maps, logs from ancient seafarers who circumnavigated the known world and returned with tales of outer lands and non-human cities. These documents are locked away, under the highest levels of ecclesiastical secrecy. The justification? To prevent mass disorientation. But it goes deeper. There are reports, difficult to verify, but too consistent to dismiss, of a secondary sun beyond the ice wall. A fainter, golden source of light that never fully sets. Travelers who claim to have glimpsed it describe a horizon that curves upward instead of down, a sky with multiple layers, and stars that do not match any known constellation. Could the sky itself be local? Could what we perceive as the firmament be a simulation, projected above a controlled zone? In 2009, an astronomer in New Zealand, working with a privately built telescope, reported a strange phenomenon. For 4 consecutive nights, the stars beyond the southern celestial pole appeared to stutter. According to his notes, their light patterns repeated in identical loops, impossible under known astrophysics. His observatory was raided, his data confiscated. He never spoke again. Many believe that what we call space is not a vast vacuum, but an upper layer of a multi-ringed realm. That beyond each outer land is a new sky, a new celestial dome, like layers of an onion. The stars above us may belong to our ring only. Each successive ring might have its own heavens, its own sun, moon, and stars. This theory is supported by ancient Babylonian and Mayan texts, which describe many firmaments, stacked like floors in a tower. The Tower of Babel, often ridiculed as myth, may have been a real attempt to breach the sky layer. If successful, such an act would have revealed the larger system, exposing the simulation, the matrix, the design. That project, as the Bible tells us, was stopped, not because of arrogance, but because it was too close to the truth. The idea that we are living in a closed system is gaining traction among physicists, though few dare say it openly. Quantum anomalies, cosmic background radiation inconsistencies, and the inexplicable flatness of space all suggest a localized design. Some experiments even hint that light behaves differently near the poles, as if something there is bending or blocking its path. What if Antarctica is not just the edge of our map, but the edge of our reality? One of the most disturbing implications of this theory is that the outer lands may not only be hidden from view, but from memory. The phenomenon of collective amnesia, often discussed in trauma psychology, may also apply to civilization. What if part of our consciousness was sealed, fragmented, erased? This would explain why so many people experience dreams of strange cities, alien landscapes, and impossible geometries. These are not imagination, they are echoes, fractures in the veil, memories of a world we once knew, or were meant to know. Dream analysis forums have shown a sharp uptick in people reporting the same elements: concentric cities, sky bridges, golden light, water flowing upward, a second moon. These symbols recur across continents, languages, and ages. Why? Are we dreaming of our prison, or of what lies beyond it? Certain researchers believe that mass awakening is not just a spiritual trend, but a biological response. That our DNA is beginning to remember. That solar activity, frequency changes, and galactic alignments are triggering dormant codes. The so-called junk DNA may contain the instructions to activate perception of the greater Earth. If true, this would explain the panic among elites. They know the illusion is fracturing. They know the map is no longer holding. And so they double down. Fake space missions, digital sky overlays, climate change distractions, viral entertainment, and artificial intelligence simulations. All designed to hold our attention inward, away from the edge. But the edge is calling. More pilots are speaking out. More satellite technicians are leaking footage. More cartographers are reporting anomalies in ice data. And more civilians are feeling something, deep in their bones. It is no longer a theory. It is a resonance. The truth is not merely hidden, it is singing to us. In dreams, in symbols, in frequencies. The original map is alive. It exists in ancient stone, in sacred geometry, in our own minds, waiting to be remembered. And once enough of us remember, it cannot be stopped. Because a map is not just a tool. It is a spell, a way of shaping perception. If we break the spell, the world reshapes itself. The wall melts, the ice cracks, the sky unfolds, and beyond it, everything they told us wasn't real. It always comes back to one moment. A figure standing at the edge of the world, staring into the blinding white, knowing, somehow, that this is not the end, but the threshold. Not a wall, a door, and it waits. You've seen it, haven't you? In your dreams. In flashes behind the eyes. In that unshakable feeling when you stare at a frozen map and think, this can't be it. This can't be all there is. Because it isn't. This entire world, the governments, the schools, the internet, the very sky above your head, is a carefully constructed narrative wrapped around a single premise. You are here. You are alone. And there is nowhere else to go. But that was the first lie. And the deepest one. The truth? We are not alone. We never were. They are watching, the ones who stayed behind. The ones who sealed the rings. Some out of fear. Some out of duty. Some out of love. The ancient orders knew this. That's why they encoded the map in architecture, in cathedrals, in mandalas and labyrinths. Look again at the rose windows of medieval Europe. Look at Tibetan sand art, Mesoamerican calendars, Aboriginal songlines. What are they if not top-down views of concentric Earth? And it goes further. The map is in your mind. Every ring, every threshold, every forbidden zone. It's encoded in your perception, waiting for the lock to break. Some call this awakening. Some call it apocalypse. But the root of apocalypsis is simple, unveiling. And the veil is lifting. Across the world, people are feeling it. An unease. A pressure. A call. Not to rebel, but to remember. To step outside the lie, even if only for a moment, and ask, what's beyond the ice? The answer is everything they fear you'll discover. Freedom. History. God. Because beyond the wall is not just land, it's memory. It's the rest of the story. And they've built their empires, their banks, their satellites, and their scriptures upon one hope, that you'll never ask to see it. But some have. A small number, explorers, pilots, monks, whistleblowers, and children have seen. Some returned. Most did not. But those who did return changed. Not broken. Opened. They spoke of skies that breathed. Oceans that spoke. Cities that moved with thought. Of beings who greeted them not with words, but with knowing. Of an earth so vast, so alive, that our world felt like a single room in a vast cathedral. And they brought back one message. We're waiting. Not the governments. Not the elites. But us. The rest of humanity. The family that chose to forget so it could learn to remember. Because that was always the point. We chose the inner ring. We agreed to forget. So that rediscovery would mean something. So that reunion would matter. And now the cycle turns. The locks are breaking. The hum is growing. The ice is thinning. The false stars flicker. The map is waking. This is why everything is accelerating. The chaos, the distractions, the crises. It's not because things are falling apart. It's because the illusion is. And they are terrified. Because when enough of us see, the map reveals itself. And then nothing can stop it. The treaties collapse. The walls melt. The watchers return. The earth expands. And we remember not just where we are, but what we are. Travelers. Explorers. Guardians of the flame. Children of a greater world. Born in shadow so we might seek the light. So if you've made it this far, if your mind is still open and your heart still listening, know this. You were never meant to stay small. The edges were drawn around you like fences around a god. But the map is no longer silent. Look to the south. Listen to your dreams. Read between the clouds. And when the time comes, when the gates open and the snow gives way to sky, step through. We'll be waiting.